As you can see, this is a beech hedge that's retained its old foliage over the winter time, and now we're getting towards spring. This is suddenly going to burst into life and we'll get lovely new growth. So good time just to have one final tidy round. Just a cautionary note though, if you're clipping your hedges from March through until July, always check the hedge first to make sure there are no nesting birds there. It's against the law to disturb them. So if we've got birds in there, we will keep well away. Just as part of the Darlac range, these are the clip and cut shears, and they are really strong, lightweight, and got very sharp blades, so they're ideal. This hedge was trimmed in the autumn to tidy it up, but this is just a final check to make sure it's nice and square, so they're perfect for just going over, taking off any jagged edges to make sure that when it does start into growth, it will look really good. Now, if you've got any stems on the hedge that are too thick for the shear to cut, these shears have got this little clip and cut section in there. As we can see, it's almost like a little pair of pruners, and simply all we do is loop it over the thicker branch and just cut it. So when you do occasionally get the thick one, like there's one here that would probably be a little thick for the shears, I can just snip it off, and it just means we get a really neat finish on the hedge. You can also use shears for all sorts of other things, and they're great at this time of the year for trimming things like these grasses. This is a ornamental grass here, a lovely miscanthus, and it's simply just a case of cutting out all this old growth ready for the new shoots that will emerge from ground level. So perfect for the job. It's just a case of going in there and giving it a really good haircut. All these old stems can be shredded and added to the compost heap to turn into garden compost. So there you can see, really they make light work of cutting down grasses and keeping hedges neatly in trim. So let's go and have a look at some of the shears. What I've got here are some shears with a difference. These are tri-bladed shears, really unusual to look at. And as we can see, we have got this central blade here with cutting edges on, and then a blade here and a blade here. And when they come together, it cuts in two directions. So you can be much more accurate, get a really neat finish. And it's also faster to cut a hedge or shrub or grasses down with these than a conventional pair. So really useful in the garden. This is a pittosporum here. Now this is one that naturally has a mound shape to it, and I don't want to clip it too formal. I want it to still have some natural shape to it, but these are ideal just at this time of the year. I just want to take a few of the growing tips out just to keep it nice and bushy and compact. So it's just literally a case, I'll just do it slowly. You can see how they work like that, and it just takes off the tips nice and neatly. Really sharp these are, and what that will do, if I just go over this pittosporum there by giving it this light trim, it means that when the weather warms up and spring is really here, we'll get this lovely flush of new growth that will fill in, and that will look really attractive right the way through the rest of the season. So really handy hedges, topiary, all sorts of trimming, the tri-blade. I've also got one more thing I want to show you while we're clipping evergreens and shrubs, and this is a box plant in this container, and what I want to do is to shape this to make a nice dome. I've already done it with some of the other ones growing around the garden. So what I'm using for these are these topiary trimmers, and these again are really easy to use, just like a giant pair of shears in a way, very similar to the old sheep shears that you used to get years ago. And what I'm going to do with this is just to take some of this lanky growth off it, just to try and start the shape to form. And again, it's just a case of going round just to give it a bit of a trim, and because they've got such a sharp edge, it makes it really easy to do. And you can control exactly how you cut, so you can get really intricate shapes. If you've got all sorts of topiary, then this will give a really neat finish to it. But essentially all I'm doing at this stage is just starting to form the ball that as it grows through the summer, I'll clip it more and more. So there we can see we've got a really clean, neat cut on there. So these are perfect for trimming all types of topiary or small evergreens, just to keep them neat and compact and in shape. Soon as the grass starts to grow in spring, you'll get the mower out and just top it. But it's also important that you keep your edges neat and tidy. At least I think it is. It just really smartens the lawn up. And the ideal way to do that is to use a pair of long arm shears like this. It's essentially just a pair of shears that have got these long handles on so that you don't have to bend down. And they make a really, really neat job of trimming the edges like that. They're easy to operate. Little tip when you are using them, instead of using both arms and doing that, the way I think it works best, the way I was shown many, many years ago when I was an apprentice, was if you're using them this way, right to left, you keep your right arm straight and you use the left arm to do the cutting. So it's literally just trimming along, following the edge of the lawn, just cutting off that little bit of grass. So I'm keeping my right arm, which is holding the bottom blade in position, and then the left arm is doing the snipping by putting the blade up and down. As you can see, that makes a really neat job and just makes the lawn and the border look so much neater and tidier. So there we go. When we get to the end, then you might just need to hoe that up with a little hoe, just chop that grass into the border so it rots down and you can't see it. And then what you do need to do is just make sure that you wipe down your edging shears when you're finished. Grass is quite corrosive, the acid in the grass, and we don't want the wet soil on there. So I've got a cloth here that's got a little bit of oil on, so it's just a bit of oil dribbled onto there. So I am literally just going to wipe them down. That will get rid of all the dirt and the grass clippings, but it will then coat the blades with a very thin film of oil which stops any rust forming, so they'll be ready to use when you next need them. And of course, if you're using topiary shears or hedge cutting shears, it's also good advice to make sure they're cleaned and all before you put them away. For information on any of the products in the Darlac range, go to darlac.com.